Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Chats with Chaudhry. I hope you're safe and well. I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend Nigel Walker from That's Nice, as we're going to talk about his recent trip, the road to 2021, where he actually visited 27 countries in 25 days and had over or close to 100 meetings, if not more, during that period. So we're just going to find out a bit more about how that trip went and what his key findings were. Nigel, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well. It's always a pleasure to see you bright and early in the morning here in New York City. So looking forward to, I think, concluding the chats with Chowdhury. And again, back now. I'm back, got 2.5 weeks from the trip, from the road to 2021. A little bit more settled, as you used to say. The old the
The bag.
bags are still there, a little bit more pasty than I am normally, but it's good to be back. It's good to be back home and back on terra firma. You know, not sitting in a little chrome mini for 25 days straight. You know,
All
16
right.
hours a day doing
Well,
this.
right. Well, so for those who are not familiar, why don't you tell everybody a quick recap of what the Road to 21 was all about in the first place?
Yeah, so the idea was it was completely to celebrate our 25th anniversary of That's Nice, and we planned it about a year ago. The idea was to reach out to Europe and to try to arrange a meeting with a market leader in each and every country, travel from country to country on each day, and try to achieve 25 countries in 25 days. So we did actually get to 27, as you said, and we did actually complete the 25 interviews in 25 countries. And in fact, it ended up being around about 100. So it was pretty fun, pretty cool. It was tight, it was arduous, but the thing is, it was a journey. And if you're thinking about the future of healthcare, is that sometimes it's a little bit unknown. I think being able to talk to a healthcare worker in France and then going to different hospitals all across Europe, that really sort of immersed ourselves from our base understanding of manufacturing and what's going on. And I'll tell you a little bit about some of the really cool stories that came out of it. But ultimately, it was supposed to put arduous journey on us as each one of the doctors and the nurses and the innovators all come together to obviously cure what's been going on. And we really didn't think that we were going to be dealing with COVID-19 because it was planned all the way back in May 2019. So it all kind of came upon us pretty quick, I would say. So who knows?
So looking back, you've had a few weeks now to reflect on the journey. If you look back on those 25 days, in terms of highlights for you, what have been some of the highlights for you in terms of the people that you interviewed during that time?
Yeah, I think really right at the very, very start, I'm proud that I have one of my first cousins is actually a healthcare worker in the national healthcare system in the Stoke-on-Trent system, the Greater Midlands system. And she talked about the fact is that many of her colleagues, you know, elderly parents, maybe a husband or a wife that had a respiratory condition. So she said that about 30% of her colleagues in her hospital network couldn't come to work. So just think about that. So you're in a hospital network of about 10,000 people that's just in that region, and 3,000 of those nurses can't come to work. So where do you go? You go find 3,000 nurses from somewhere. So she went in every single day, still dealing with elective surgeries, dealing with emergencies, although they came right down because there wasn't a whole lot of emergency surgery what was going on because nobody was driving. But actually to go in and to go into those wards, not really getting a full understanding, is this Spanish flu? Is this just something that's going to last a week? Or is this going to be maybe a multi-year virus, which is really what we ended up looking at. So that was pretty cool. But then, and I have to keep bringing up, there's a lady called Anna Chiotti from Luxembourg. She'd worked in commerce, she'd worked in innovation, and now she's a public servant working in Luxembourg government. Luxembourg, of all of the citizens, are under single system, one single system, and she's trying to develop a digital system so you can pull your entire life's healthcare records onto your own device. So think about damn cool that is that you've got a country of 630,000 people, citizens, and it all comes together under one single vision. So yes, cure, patient cure, disease cure is ultimately what we're in this for. But she's actually trying to make a difference to the individual. So to create a digital platform that all your records are under a single system and you can actually access them. So when you go in and see a new physician or orthodontist or some specialty practice, is that all of your records there are under a single access. That was a moment that I was like, that is the future of healthcare in our lifetime.
Well, I've got a question for you about that though, because the cynic in me will say that there'll be some people are quite reticent to do that because of data protection and thinking Big Brother is watching me. So how, from her perspective, and the conversation whether you found out or not, how receptive were the population or citizens to partake in that sort of system?
Well, we looked at data with regards to life expectancy, with regards to certain diseases, cardiovascular diseases, your general cancer, which is typically the #1 killer across the whole of Europe, with regards to obesity, different influences for carcinogens, smoking, alcoholism, the typical three high drivers that kill the majority of the European population. And what we've identified is that Luxembourg was tracking at #2 or #3 in life expectancy and longevity across Europe. So if you're looking at like having a long life or the longest life, you go and move to Switzerland. But it's extremely expensive. The healthcare system there is it's a public system, but it's also the most expensive system. But if you have a look at Luxembourg, it's a relatively low discussed country in Europe. If you've got a high quality of life, you've got high life expectancy, and all of their diseases are tracking downwards in trend. So for me, Luxembourg is doing something right. Now,
and all of a sudden we'll have all these people rushing now trying to get Luxembourg visas now to try and move over there.
Well,
after this video.
It's got a great tax system with regards to corporate domiciles as well. So, I think Amazon Europe just moved over there. And there's a lot of pharmaceutical innovator biotech startups that are domiciled in Europe. So that was really, really where, for me, that was something that I thought was particularly advanced within the lifetime that we have. Maybe as a second quick one, we had Salvo Biotechnology, which had just been acquired by Charles River. So Erno Duda was the founder there, and he was talking about individual dosing. So, you can have an 80-pound female, 7 stone female, or a 300-pound, 20-stone male, and they're being given the same dose of the same medicine to affect the same disease, or give them quality of life. That doesn't make any sense. It's your metabolism, your weight, and your gene sequence that needs to be mapped, and then you should be able to be given a dose that works for you as an individual, personalized medicine. Cost management of that and how that's actually going to be implemented down at the physician level or at the pharmacy is something that ultimately we may see in our lifetime, but who knows? So that's the big unknown, but that's probably the next step from that digital revolution.
Now, you are actually in a unique position that you actually visited so many countries in short space of time during COVID. So two questions for you then. In terms of just one of the very topical questions about masks and so on, what did you find in Europe? Were there massive differences in the way people were reacting to COVID in terms of how they were handling the disease from a population point of view? And also, did views differ in terms of from country to country in terms of how they felt things would be resolved, how quickly things would be resolved around COVID?
Yeah, so part of the first question on masks is, we started out in the British Isles, and I think overall, I would say there was probably around about a 40% wearing there, and there was no mandate that came down from the Prime Minister to say that you must wear masks at that point on the street. So I would say just by looking around, when we started, it's about 40%. If you then flip that over to Milan, it was about 95% of people were wearing masks on the street. And the local community there in Milan was pretty damn serious about it. When we went to Latvia, it was probably 20% of people wearing it on the street. So if you have a look at the population peaks of positive cases of COVID in Milan, and looking at Latvia, and then looking at, let's say, the British Isles, you can see that there's been spikes in countries that are not wearing masks. Now, with regards to adherence and actually following the rules, I think when you went into like a museum or a restaurant or a shop in the European, I think almost everybody was wearing masks in these enclosed public spaces. But then, of course, you sit down at a restaurant, everyone takes their masks off, and ultimately, then you're off to Looneyville again. So the challenge being is how do you have some quality of life with regards to eating or having a drink or whatever you're doing, having a coffee or a biscuit, and wearing a mask. So I've now started to see people in New York in the last there's a little hole on the side of their mask, and they put a straw through. So I think you're going to start seeing those across Europe. So, people are going to drink their coffee through a straw, so you can keep your mask on. So it's maybe that might be something you might start seeing in London in the coming week.
They will do. And what about the view in terms of COVID, in terms of how long it's going to last? And I mean, obviously, you talked to a lot of people who are within the industry. So, did you see any consensus view from the various people you spoke to across Europe when COVID came up, or has everyone got quite desperate views and it's quite extremes that you've got in terms of views and everything in between as well?
Very, very consistent, and a great question. Unfortunately, when you speak to the average man or woman on the street, they have absolutely no clue. They pick up on something they've seen on the news or in a newspaper or online. Yesterday I spoke to my mum. She was 84 yesterday, and she said, "Oh, it's great. Thank you. She said, it's great news, Nigel." She said, "It's we're all getting the vaccine.
I know.
We're all getting the vaccine in March. The Prime Minister said that the vaccine's all coming in March." I said, "Oh, are they going to airdrop it, Mum? What's going to happen?" I said, "It's not happening. It's not happening." Pfizer said they got a 90% positive hit on 6 people that they gave it to. Well, it wasn't 6, but and I was like, you got to manufacture it. That drug needs to be stored at minus 90. You need 2 doses of it. It has a half-life. They said when you take it out of its storage, when it drops 10 degrees, there's a question on its stability. I said it's very volatile. It's an RNA vaccine, so it's highly specialized. It's really expensive. And I said, there's only capacity right now booked with, I think, Catalan to manufacture 100 million units of it. And my mum's like, "Oh, so we're not going to get it in March?" I said, "No, Mum, no, we're not getting it in March. We're not getting it in March. You're not getting it in March. No one's getting it in March because they haven't started making it yet."
I know, it was funny. I had that conversation with someone only yesterday or this morning when I was saying the problem is that the general population, as you say, who are not working in the industry, don't understand the whole process and how long that process is to do it, and the logistic problems that people face. I'm sure everyone is gearing up and they're doing their best to make sure that things do happen quickly, but it's still going to take time. And the problem is that the news media, without trying to blame the media, because I'm not, and politicians, and to be fair, the politicians in the UK have tried to temper it to some degree, any positive news and try and give people hope. And the problem is that people transfer that hope, no matter what people say, to, well, it's going to happen by the end of the year and we'll be okay now. Because it gives them that feeling of they can now go back to normal a lot quicker than in reality you can do. I think that's the issue.
The power of the politician is huge. If you spoke to somebody in Finland, as we did, and we spoke to somebody, let's say, in Slovenia, and maybe somebody in Monaco, and we spoke to people on the street in all the countries that we visited, every one of them on the street thought that they were getting vaccine in Q1. When you spoke to the professionals, and we spoke to Innovator, Big Pharma, we spoke to gene sequencing companies, distribution logistics companies, every one of those were very crystal clear that there would be some form of administered vaccination next year. Is that going to be through an oral delivery? Probably not, but we do actually have a client that's working on one right now. Is it going to be through probably a 1, 2, 3 multi-dose injection over a 30-day, 45-day period? Almost definitely. It's going to have to be administered at the pharmacy level. I mean, United States, we have the CVS's, we have, the Dwayne Reeds,
Sure.
we have the Walgreens, and obviously Boots in the UK. But that's probably where the high volume administration is going to come from. But ultimately, we don't have that answer right, because if we did, we put every single penny we have into that company. And that's the, whatever it's going to be called, the $100 billion silver bullet. But I do think that the everyday man and woman on the street has absolutely no clue. And it really is the fault of the media, is because the media is educated. The media can talk to the scientific community on a more educated level. And they should be putting out more of a realistic message rather than a hopeless goal that we're all getting something in March, because it's not happening.
So also you're in a unique position, which again, you're one of the few people who's been traveling from country to country.
Yep.
How have you found it easy to travel from one place to another, particularly in this age of COVID, where different countries have got different restrictions in terms of border control, and things are on a constant basis changing from day to day as to which countries are eligible to come in and what are, and obviously you could be seen as a super spreader in your minis, actually, you and your colleagues,
Yes.
because you're going from country to country. So how did you find it traveling from country to country across Europe?
Well, what we first of all did is we asked each one of the people that we had preset interviews with if they were comfortable with meeting us at the 6 feet apart. And as you know, look, you get into that, you get to see someone and you do the old elbow bump, and there's a challenge there, is like you're already breaking that 6 feet, right? On the second front is you're going through border control, so you got to show your passport. And I would say that we probably showed our passport about 15 different borders out of the 27 countries that we went through. Obviously, all the ferries we had to, the tunnels that we had to, and so on. Nobody questioned what we were doing. Nobody said, you're not citizens of Hungary, you're not citizens of Croatia, Latvia, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Netherlands, Germany, go through the whole routine. Nobody said you can't come in, which I was quite surprised at, because we were completely prepared to say, oops, we're going to have to do an 800-mile detour and get around that country. So that was quite surprising. The next level of surprising is that everybody, from a friend's perspective and a client's perspective, said, how are you going to achieve this? Because you're not going to get into Hungary. They're not going to allow you in. They just waved us in. So there was a perception that you couldn't get in, and then there was an actuality, is that you could completely get in. And I think if you look at life, that a lot of people live their life by what they're told rather than what is actually the reality. And as you probably know, Rizwan, that's how I've lived my life pretty much my whole life. I was not breaking the rules. Not breaking the rules. I did do my quarantine coming into the UK before we started the journey. Everybody was tested, and everybody was tested the day we all got back. And everybody was negative at the start. I've actually had 4 tests now, and I've been negative the whole way through.
I'm glad to
all
hear
right.
that. Yeah.
Now, bit of news is that one of our staff members, who's actually sitting a little bit behind me now, she actually got the news that she was positive the last day of the trip. So as we were wrapping up the very last day of the trip, and we were there all sitting, toasting and doing the champagne, is that one of our staff did get tested in New York positive. So we then had to close New York office for 2 weeks to make sure that everyone in the office then got retested again. So we have taken this seriously. Nobody contracted it, and nobody was positive during the trip. We were able to execute everything that we wanted to do, and we played it safe. but we also stayed in a very tight bubble. So yes, super spreaders. Yes, we were called out a few times.
I can imagine.
For some of our English friends, but no, 100% safe.
Fantastic. So, so concluding, if you look back on the trip, you know, you've obviously got a load of memories, and I know you were charting in a day-to-day, which always helps in terms of remembering things as well, which you're doing a day-to-day diary on this on LinkedIn. For you, if you look back and go, well, actually, Nigel, how would you sum up that trip? You know, three things which sort of stand out in your memory that you'll always remember looking back, and you would sort of share with other people.
Yeah, well, the first I think key memory is we went through all the teams and the whole team coming together. We had 28 separate people working on the journey every single day for 25 days straight. So the whole team came together as a collective to deliver. They were actually out of 5 separate office locations. There was the entire senior management team works on it, and we worked as one to get it done. The end product was so much better than the road to bio from an end product perspective. That was, first of all, very, very pleasing. So the team coming together to get it done, I'd say that was number one. Number two, I think it's honestly a completely unique life experience. If we'd have done this without COVID, we wouldn't have had the subject matter. We wouldn't have had the lack of traffic, the access to the cities, the super low cost for all the hotels. The cost to do the entire trip was around about $400,000 of total cost. And we estimated it would have cost around about $800,000 to $900,000 if we'd have done it during a normal time. So then it would have maybe become cost prohibitive. So the little time window that we did it in, it would probably be number two. And number three is being able to meet new people that are innovating, are trying to improve science, and being able to give them 30 minutes, 45 minutes of their time in front of camera, as you do every day, Rizwan, talking about what they're doing to improve the future of healthcare. Some of these people never get to speak to media. I told them up front, nothing's going to be sensational. We don't, as you know, that's nice for farmers, right? And it's about dirt. We're only about the future, only about positive energy. So being able to take some of these little stories and raise them up. And there's about 6 or 7 of these companies that have got some really amazing technology. So I think meeting those new people was probably the third thing as well. And then ultimately the big picture is that you can actually see from anywhere in the world what these 27 countries have to offer. And remember, Luxembourg was the future. So who would have known, right? Who would have known? Who would have known? The favorite country, though, and the biggest effort and the biggest involvement from the schooling all the way up to innovator was Scotland. Right. So Scotland won the country of the trip.
Fantastic. And final thing, and I always say this, but I can add another final onto it, is you had a competition running. Have you announced the winner yet and told how many miles you've done yet?
You know who the winner was? The winner was Katie Christophic. And no, we haven't announced it. So no, you know, so you can announce it. It was Katie Christophic from SPI Farmer, and she won. She got closest to the winning mileage.
So what is the winning mileage though? You need to tell me, because people will be wondering out there what the mileage was.
Well, you'll have to take a look online on that one.
All right. Well, you heard that. I mean, this shows that we are filming this live right now. There's no been script for this interview at all, so you can tell by the questions I've been asking. So you can check out That's Nice Space to find out what's the winning mileage. But congratulations.
There's 2 7s and there's 2 6s, so you can make a choice of what they are.
Price is right now we're playing. So, Chris, if you're watching this, congratulations. I'm sure Nigel will be winging over.
Katie Christophic.
Katie Christophic. So there you go. See, Katie. Well, Katie, my apologies. Congratulations on winning, and I'm sure the prize will be winging its way over to you in the not distant future. So
brand new iPad. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're a lucky person. So, Nigel, all I can say is thank you very much for taking time out, mate. It was lovely to see you again. I'm glad you got back
Pleasure as
safe
well.
and well. And hopefully we can catch up. We could talk for hours about your trip. I know there's so much we could talk about on your
Yeah.
trip. There's been so much you've done. But thank you very much for taking time out. I hope you found that interesting, everybody. If you've got any comments for Nigel, if you want to ask him about his experiences, ask him how you can get to certain countries in Europe as he's done it now, then put a comment on or send him a private message. I'm sure he'll give you the tips how to get around that border control. And if you've got any other questions, though, for Nigel about the trip, about what people think about COVID in Europe, then I'm sure he'll be happy to answer those as well. So, Nigel, as always, thank you very much for taking time out, mate. It's lovely to see you again. And as always, everybody, stay well and stay safe. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.